Hi, everyone. Welcome this afternoon to another cookbook festival. And we are really proud and very happy to have Monika Linton from Brindisa fame. Now, we all love a bit of Spanish food, and Monika founded Brindisa back in the 1980s, and she's going to take us through this wonderful journey because I'm sure many of you have bought some of her food or have eaten in one of her tapas bars, restaurants. You can get it online. We're going to find out all about the deliciousness. And she's also the author of The True Food of Spain, which is a fantastic book. Oh, we've got some thunder in the background.
Thunder here. We just had a whole lot of thunder here.
Yeah, brilliant. So welcome, Monika. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. And I just want to talk to you about, so you went to Spain. Well, you studied languages as a degree, and your father had a severe love of Spain, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. It was just one of those things. He just hooked onto Spain when he was at Oxford studying law, and in his holidays, the summer holidays, he cycled or used his little moped to get to Spain to visit and tour around. He slept in barns, a bit like Laurie Lee did. But and so he always told us those stories, and he learnt Spanish when he was in a hospital bed in Malaya with polio, and so he just decided to learn Spanish for because he loved it. And then it kind of had this sort of drip feed into all of us as a country that was full of lots of interest and mystery, because it was a lesser known country in those years, in the 50s and 60s. So he used to tell us the stories, and it inspired us. We've always loved languages anyway, because we're quite an international family, lived abroad a lot anyway.
Yes, as a child, you lived in Africa and Asia.
Yeah, that's right. So
what did your father do? Can I just ask?
Oh, he worked for Shell International, and he went in the colonial service first, and then Shell International. And you get posted all over the place. So you really broadens your mind as a young, an 8-year-old, being sent all over the place and traveling on aeroplanes, and so learning a language was second nature really, because it was just another passport, if you like, to another country.
Oh, how amazing. And also, when you were in these countries, your parents encouraged you to eat all these random local foods. So you had quite an eclectic palate from a young person.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. I mean, we were always encouraged to eat in the markets, or, accompany mum when she went to the market in Lagos to buy pawpaw or, avocados or whatever it was. So tropical fruits and, exotic seafood were always a big part of what we ate when we were younger. So yeah, exactly. It all just stuck. And became a lifetime's passion, I suppose, really.
Because after your degree, you visited Catalonia and you spent 3 years there working, I'm presuming, or were you investigating food?
No, I was just working as a language teacher, because when I finished my Spanish degree, I wanted to be in Spain, but I didn't know how to really be in Spain apart from as an English teacher at that time. And so that's what I did. I did a TEFL course, which lots of people do. It's very quick and it's not that challenging, it's easy. But the fun bit of it that is challenging is actually managing a classroom and, actually getting them to learn the language. So, but that then put me in touch with all sorts of people in this community where I worked. They were children of farmers, or, they made product, whether it was sausages or they were dairy farmers. So you get into, this was a rural environment. So, you get to know all sorts of trades.
Yes, and you were also fascinated by their festivals and how they would cook these amazing large paellas or whatever for 200 people. And it was just so easy and so normal.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It didn't really have to be some sort of, highfalutin gourmet dish. It was just the whole community were out there eating from the same pan, and, guys who had sort of paddles just to sort of stir the food around. And it was really, it was really mouth-watering and eye-opening, really, because we're, in England, traditionally, we're quite restrained about how we eat. And in Spain, it was all like, no, let's just do sardines on the beach in larger quantities, or rice dish that's going to feed 200 people. And there's no holding back.
So I can remember once being on the beach, and there was a gentleman making a paella, and he's honestly using gardening implements.
Yes,
and to stir. And to begin with, you're shocked, but then after a while you think, well, why not? It makes complete sense.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, and you love the past.
They live out in the street so much more than we do because of their climate. So they party outside, eat outside, drink outside. It's really fun.
It's kinder, isn't it? And you were fascinated by the lentils and all the different foods, but cheese is your first love, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and it still is. You know, I love the legumes, and we do go a bit mad about lentils and all the different varieties of beans and so on. There's something about cheese that is, is just very enticing because the flavors can be so incredible, but also how it changes. It's never, although you have the same milk and the same recipe, but different seasons and maybe the same recipe in the hands of another maker. And there's so many areas where you can find little changes that are really interesting to follow and to track. And different breeds of sheep and different areas of Spain have such different cheeses. And so there's always a backdrop that's quite culturally gripping as well as the actual cheese itself.
Amazing. So then when you came back to London, Spain wasn't part of the EU then, which was quite interesting. It's like a world away. Your brother came back, you were having a dinner party, and he brought back a box of cheeses, and you sort of had this light bulb moment and you thought, I'm going to start bringing cheeses back.
That's right. Yeah, it was actually my brother. He brought the cheese box over to show me them all because he was living there, and he had picked up all these cheeses in a cheese shop because he was selling British Stilton to Spanish retailers in Barcelona at that time.
Oh, wow.
So he'd met cheese shop owners in Barcelona and around in that area. And so they said, look, why don't you take all of this back, or show your sister in England? And so that's what he did. And then that's when we were just eating it for, I think it was his and my sister's birthday because they're twins. We were just eating our way through this kind of box of cheese and thought, wow, there must be life in this box beyond just this evening, that evening's dinner. So that was really where I actually shifted from shipping wine, which is what I started with, to shipping cheese, because I felt cheese was more immediate. You've got to milk an animal every day and make cheese every day, whereas wine is a once a year production, although there's a whole system behind it. You only harvest and make it once, and then you've got to wait for years for it to happen. That's all far too long term for me. I prefer the cheese, like it's a daily thing. I like that. So, and it can vary so much more quickly. So I sort of dropped the wine and we moved into cheese, and then obviously further into Spanish food.
But when you first started, you were going around the good restaurants and talking to the chefs, and were you also going to the shops? Because you were a one woman band, weren't you?
Yeah, at the very early stages, definitely. Yeah, no, I went to the restaurants, but I also went to shops. I went to Garcia's, which probably everybody knows Garcia's on Portobello Road. And the father, Rafael Garcia, was running it at the time. And he was really like, I don't think anyone's going to want this very artisan and specialist Spanish food. Most of my customers don't have a lot of money. And I sort of said, well, it's not household brands from Spain, I know, but let's just try it. Let's just put it out there and see. I'm sure you'll have people who will want it, even if it's once a month or something. Anyway, within 2 weeks, he had to call me, and I'd left my stock there on sale or return so that he hadn't had to pay out for it. And he called me in 2 weeks saying, I've sold it all. I can't believe it. I've got to make another order. And these were all artisan cheeses from Los Balanchares in Andalusia, and it was fruit wheels that were hand pressed and, quite expensive items, but he did sell them through. And so anyway, he was my first retailer.
That's amazing.
Actually, Selfridges were very close behind Garcia's as well, buying from me cheeses.
And you sold to Anton Carluccio, the great man, who's part, and Rose Gray.
Yes. Yeah, now Carluccio and Antonio and Rose were mad about anchovies. And so we sort of met in Norway. Anchovies were always the central conversation, really. The topic that we all loved. And because a lot of the anchovies the Italians actually fillet and pack do come from the north coast of Spain. So the raw material is actually shared. It's the same anchovy. But all the techniques for preserving anchovies is actually an Italian technique. So it was a shared story, if you like, between Italy and Spain.
No, that's lovely. Can you just tell me, because then you obviously it was beginning to take off. Did you have your branding by that stage?
Branding, well, I mean, you
Logo, because your logo is amazing, I have to say. It's beautiful. I love it. When I see one of your vans drive by, it gives me a flutter.
that's very sweet. That's nice. Well, the name I always had at the beginning, I just decided that Brindisa is the word for a toast, and I thought that's a nice word, and I sort of made it into a combination of, you know, Brindisa, you know, SA for limited, and then and the bull came. A friend of my early business partner Emma, a friend of hers, came up with this bull that was like the Altamira drawing of an animal, a horned animal. I think it's actually not a bull on the Altamira cave. It's something else. But anyway, it looked like a bull, and so that became ours. And then it was adapted into the bull that you see today by Simon Key, who's an illustrator friend of ours. Because after a few years, I said, I really want that bull to be moving. I don't want him static, because we're moving, and we're going to be, you know, we want to be a brave, you know, proud Spanish bull looking upwards like he does, but we also wanted to be moving forward, not a static cave drawing.
That's very interesting, because things like that are really, really important. And I do think your bull is galloping.
Yeah.
And, you know, and he's galloping to deliver to people's homes and restaurants and houses, I'd say.
Yes, yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So how long ago was that you did the second image?
Oh golly, probably because he's on the front door at our Balham warehouse, so that must have been 2002. So it would have been the late 90s, early 2000, maybe 2001 or 2, or something like that.
Okay, because where were your first warehouses?
Oh, I had so many. It'd take me ages.
Have you? You've got loads.
At the beginning, I just basically sublet corners in other people's warehouses. So we were in Crouch End for a bit, then we were in Bermondsey. We moved around because I didn't really have the resources to pay rent.
Yeah.
So all sorts of other businesses were very kind to just accommodate me and, you know, Emma, well, my business partners as we grew, my colleagues, but we were always like one or two, and then a lot of Manchego cheese. And so it was, can we find a home in your space? Can we find a home in your space? And that's how it evolved, really. So we didn't actually, although we started in 88, Mark and I started it in 88, we didn't actually pay we didn't have a lease of our own, if you like, until probably 1998.
Gosh, so you were just sort of warehouse surfing almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and out of the goodness of your friends, but you'd give them some cheese or something, and it was kindness, because everyone likes to help someone.
Yeah, I mean, we did pay, we contributed to their overheads, but we didn't have our, you know, it was sort of as we needed it. So deliveries were also done by them. So it was sort of overhead. I needed flexible overheads. I didn't want to have too many fixed overheads at that stage as I was building demand.
And was it
obviously where we ended up in Borough Market really, really early on?
Yes.
Just a square with Porter's Provisions within their space. And that enabled us to build a relationship with Borough Market, which then obviously became quite an important part, well, a very, very important part of our evolution.
That was fantastic, because you've got the shop there and you've got the tapas bar that you opened as well.
But we were in Borough in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
When it was really tumbleweed, and it was quite scary walking from the tube station to our warehouse, which seems kind of really bizarre now. But anyway,
it's quite gentrified and expensive now, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I know, it's really changed.
And it's got every great foodie there.
Yeah.
On the planet.
It's very vibrant. It's a lovely place to work.
Yeah, very exciting, and an adrenaline rush, because of everyone together has that common denominator of food and good food.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you just started with cheese, then you started bringing in hams and sausages and paella rice and kits you now create.
Yes, yeah. No, the portfolio's obviously evolved massively from those early days, but cheese, charcuterie you couldn't actually bring in those early years because Spain wasn't a full member of the EU, so there were all sorts of restrictions on certain categories, and meat was definitely one that was forbidden for import until a bit further on. And then there was a sort of phased approach to the charcuterie, and then the artisan charcuterie companies didn't always have the ability to become European accredited, if you like, for export. So that took a long time to, so with the charcuterie, it was the most industrial who had the permissions, and the smallest and the nicest, if you like, in industries had to wait a long time to build the resources to export. So that was a sort of timeline of its own. And then, because I couldn't get the charcuterie in easily at the beginning, and Spanish cheese in the early 90s was quite a hard sell. Not many people were that interested, to be honest.
Gosh.
I had to bring in other products to sustain what I was doing. So that's when I brought over the Prado olive oil, Nunes de Prado, that's very established now. The legumes, I brought some of the best legumes you could get at the time, and people like Sally Clark and Rose Gray and Simon Hopkinson all bought those kind of ingredients that were more generic to the Mediterranean, not quite as Spanish like cheese was.
When you say legumes, you mean the dried beans, don't you? The pulses.
Yeah, like the judíon, the big, really, really, fat butter beans that you can get from southwest Spain, the chickpeas, the lentils, but they're very, very, very premium. I mean,
yeah.
I remember ringing Sally Clark ring me one day as I got my first consignment coming over, and she said, "Oh, do you have any new seasoned beans coming over?" And I was like, "Of course I do." Customers for them at the time. I just had a hunch that it was the right thing to do, and so I was very encouraged when Sally just serendipitously called me on the day that I had my shipment coming over, saying, "Yes, it's exactly what I've got coming over." And she was a very keen customer for a long time for those beans.
That's amazing. And it must have been really hard bringing all your stuff in. That must have been logistically, just the paperwork and the legalities, and then getting it in and then dispatching it out. It's not easy, is it?
No, it's not. It got easier, obviously, because of the EU membership and Spain becoming a full member of the EU. And so all of that, it just got easier and easier and easier. So it started off really difficult. And you needed all these, health certificates and all this sort of stuff, which we still have to obviously check all our suppliers, but you do it at base. You do it at their, at source, if you like. It doesn't hamper any of the logistics. We might well be going back to a system where it hampers the logistics, which might reduce some of our options. But basically, the job got easier and easier on that side. The thing that was probably a bit more challenging is setting up due diligence and labelling, food standards on all the labelling, because in Spain, and translated labels, all of that is quite fiddly and consuming, but we've got a very established and very capable quality control department that manage all of that. And you just have to be very patient, because I sometimes want a product to arrive tomorrow and they say, no, Monica, hang on, we've got to do this, 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 and this first. I say, okay, right, yes, it's not like the old days.
Oh, and do you still go out to Spain? Are you the chief sourcer, or do you have others?
I obviously used to go out a lot more, because I was doing all, the buying as well as, and obviously I was, when Scott Bowden started working with me, he didn't have, he's not bilingual. So the Spanish, although he was far better at buying than I was in terms of numbers and understanding production and all those details. We shared the relationships because I had the language, but he had the sort of the buying experience and knowledge. So that was quite complementary, because we could build the stories, but we could also have the solid knowledge, if you like, to make it a viable opportunity. But I traveled a lot more until basically I started having my family, the two little kids. It was hard. I did travel at the beginning with them, just sort of strapped to me, and sort of, had to,
onto a holiday.
I travelled, I breastfed in the back room when I had to. I mean, when they were portable, it was easier. Now they're not portable. And so I stay home a bit more, quite a lot more. And I have colleagues. We've got a buyer in Spain who's there all the time. And, my brother's in Spain, so he helps us with certain projects as well. And then I've got very, very good colleagues who are bilingual and are sort of set up to living here. Spanish people often living here, and who go over to Spain and build the relationships.
But you must also get people sending you samples and saying, would you like to take this and put it on?
Yeah. We get a lot of offers, and I think a lot of food businesses you do get inundated with sort of offers for olive oil, and you just think, well, how much olive oil can we really sell? Yeah. So, I mean, you get more offers than you really need. And And sometimes it's really helpful because you find something that you might not have thought about. But on the whole, we find what we need because we know what we need, if you see what I mean. You go looking for what you need.
You know your market. You know
Yeah,
what
I
sells.
kind of know what's going to work and what's already overdone, or what, what niche might be just too competitive to make the effort at this point. It's a timing thing as well.
How many different sorts of hams do you have that are whole ones that which you slice in your restaurants?
Oh golly, well, we've got about six or seven, six origins. I don't know. Two of them are white pig, if you like, from Trevelez in Andalusia and from Teruel. Those are two origins that we've been working with for a while. I think post-COVID, I think it's going to be hard to see everybody jumping on a ham wagon, for their restaurants, because it's going to be quite a challenge. But we have the Iberico Blackfoot, we have the Salamanca origin of Guijuelo, we have the Jabugo one of Huelva, and we have one from Córdoba in Andalusia. So all of those are, and then we have certain categories, or I mean not categories, but qualities within those categories. So sometimes you'll have the full bellota and so on. So we've got lots of choices.
A lot.
Sometimes I think it's a bit overwhelming. You just need three. It depends who you're selling to, actually.
Yeah. I love it though, going into your borough market store, and they very finely slice it, like greaseproof paper. And it's a real art, and it's really well done.
Yeah, and they're very proud of their, how they present it all, and because they're slicing all the time, they get so familiar with the variations within the different characteristics of different types of hams that you could, you can sell or you can buy. Even for our chefs, for our chef customers we obviously had a lot of chef customers before COVID-19, and they would go to the shop to taste their way through different types of hams to then make their own choices for their restaurants. That was also very helpful.
And tell us, because you've got 5 restaurants, haven't you?
5 restaurants, and we've got a market bar now, Borough Market. Yes. Outdoor bar.
Which is lovely.
Like a kitchen bar, because you can sit around and see the kitchen.
Yeah.
The bar sort of hugs the kitchen.
You sort of feel you're in Spain.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the markets in Spain.
Yeah, which is really, really great. And so they're all shut at the moment. Are you doing, because you've got such an amazing delivery service, are you doing a massive delivery service? Has that just gone Zoom?
The delivery service to retailers, third-party retailers and online and so on has that's really grown over the last 3 months. It was we've always been very, very focused on our retail customers, and we've got category in all our products. There's always a retail version, if you like, of we've always been selling to retailers, so we're well evolved in that way in terms of labeling, distribution, customer service, and so on. But obviously, with restaurants shut, we've adapted to the consumer wanting to have deliveries to home, which is a different kind of package, because it's obviously a bit smaller, and it's but the thing about the lockdown is everybody's been at home, so you haven't got to be waiting for a delivery slot when somebody isn't there. Do you know what I mean? So it's actually been quite straightforward from the customer's perspective to just deliver because everyone's at home.
Yeah.
The challenge for us was at the warehouse, in a way, to adapt the space and to socially distance within the warehouse when you're doing a higher volume of smaller packs than sort of pallets or half pallets to people. But we've managed it, and we're very happy with what we've managed, and we've got some incredible reviews on from consumers who've received our food. And we've got a few restaurants actually who have either reopened or tried to stay open with little shops within their demise, doing takeaway food or whatever, and buying ingredients, and certainly keeping the conversation going, because we all hope to go back to where we were.
Oh, definitely. So COVID hasn't been great for you, but you are surviving.
For the wholesale business, it's been, it's actually been quite a boost to half the business, which was retail. It's really helped that evolve and almost accelerated its potential development. That some of the things we might have thought of doing, we might not have done quite as quickly without the virus impact. But the restaurants are obviously a different story, and everybody knows. I mean, there's a lot in the press about restaurants and how challenging it's going to be. So we've opened up a couple, the Battersea Tapas Bar and the London Bridge Tapas Bar. We're doing a few takeaway items from there, and you know, we'll, like everybody else, we're sort of the next 2-3 weeks is like, well, let's see how it goes.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, fingers crossed that things progress in a positive way and you can reopen.
Yeah.
Are they run as two separate businesses, though, your sort of import and your restaurant?
Yeah, so the restaurants are one structure within one company, and the wholesale and retail is within another company.
Yeah.
They're very different disciplines, you see, so I couldn't pretend to be both. So.
Yes, so you must have someone in charge of your restaurants, not coming, you know, food, but not coming from a restaurant background. It's completely a new world.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I have, you know, I have a key management team, Ratnesh Bagdai, who's been a finance director and operational director and business partner with me since the beginning. Okay. Used to work with Mark Hicks and Caprice Holdings, and so, you know, a lot of experience.
Very knowledgeable.
It gives me peace of mind that we know what we're doing.
Fantastic. So how many people do you employ, Brindisa, in total, roughly?
In total, it's, well, I mean, if it's probably about 100, 200 across the two businesses.
Goodness gracious. And tell me, I don't think they knight people in Spain, but have you been knighted in Spain?
Well, I was actually, I know they did vote me in onto the Caballero de Vinos. I don't know if you know that organization, but it's sort of, it's wine experts and, you know, for kind of services, if you like, to the wine industry. And although I don't do wine strictly, I mean, where we do food, wine and food are perfect partners. And so they did vote me in as a Caballero de Vino on, you know, so I've got a cape and I've got the very smart hat and I go to the dinner every year. And so it's, you know,
well, they must love you because you have put, to some people, Spanish food is a bad take on an English breakfast and they don't venture any further than that. And to other people, it's the most delicious food in the world and they have some of the best restaurants with the highest awards. Yeah, and the fact that you've taken the very best of what they produce and brought it into our country, I think we're forever grateful, I have to say.
Thank you, Fran. Well, it's been a lot of fun, and I mean, obviously there's Spanish, you know, chefs and all sorts of gastronomes in Spain who know far more about Spanish food than I ever will, even though I've spent 33 years working with Spanish food. So it's kind of Spanish food by way of London, if you know what I mean, because, you know, there are just reams and reams and reams of more knowledge that we could all, you know, try and have about whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
but London is constantly hungry for world food. Yes,
exactly. So you know, it's been a lovely journey though, bringing it over and showing people how incredibly delicious it can be, and the quality that the Spanish like to work with at that very top end. But you don't have to only be a Michelin star restaurant to choose the best ingredients. You can choose the best ingredients for home as well.
Yeah, you can, because on your website, you know, you've got paella kits, wine, charcuterie, sweet treats, oils, tomatoes. But tell me about your octopus from Galicia.
Oh, incredibly popular. I never ever imagined that we would sell as much as we do in our shops. So, you know, it's really well poached. So you haven't got to struggle at home trying to cook it or, you know, tenderize it and so on. You can just finish it off, and so you can use it lots and lots of different ways. But I have watched our chefs in the early days when they bought, you know, raw octopus. You have to sort of dunk it in the water 100 times, like Nieves, I think, does at a restaurant in Regent Street that she's got. You know, this is obviously a more an easier pack to use, and it gets incredible. It's very, very popular.
Well, if there's one food that I've noticed on Instagram, is actually lots of griddled octopus or barbecued octopus.
Exactly.
It seems to be, you know, sourdough octopus. I'd say they've been pretty high.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely true.
Yeah, it's great fun.
It's very versatile, and you can, because I think people are trying to eat less meat. But I think they still want to cook in the way that you might grill something on the barbecue. But you can, and because octopus is quite robust, it's a bit like monkfish, you can do a bit more with it than you might do with a plaice. You can do some of the things that are familiar, if you like, in terms of how you cook it.
Well, that's fantastic. Could you share with me, I don't know if I sent you this in advance, so I might put you on the spot, I'm sorry if I do, your favourite food inspiration, be it a film, a chef, a book?
Oh, golly.
Yeah,
I think, I mean, it doesn't have to be a novel, it can be a food book, a recipe book.
Yeah, whatever, just something that...
Always go back to Deborah Madison.
Oh, really?
I don't know why, but it's the book that we use the most. It always has been. And it's the most broken because we use it so often. All the pages are sort of, the spine slightly wobbly. But it is, the Greens Cookbook is just one of our favourites. And I mean, my husband's vegetarian, so obviously it means that at home we look for a lot of vegetarian dishes. But I just love the detail of her recipes. You think, oh, I can't be bothered. And then you look at it and you do it and you think, I really can be bothered. Every little thing that she puts in her recipe, every almost measurement of ingredient that you should chop it to, all makes a massive amount of difference.
Okay.
And so you just got used to doing it. But, you know, I hand it to my daughter or friends who like cooking. They say, oh, there are no photographs, don't like it, it's got no photographs, or it's too fiddly. But it's really worth all the fiddle.
It's your family Bible.
Yeah, it's a brilliant book. And I met Deborah years ago, so I've always been connected in that way. And I went to stay with her in New Mexico, which was a lot of fun. And I realised she was an insomniac and got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and just baked her way till breakfast.
Oh, delicious.
Fun. Yeah.
That's a real treat. And do you have one favourite kitchen tool or bar tool, something that you just go to in your kitchen, or you just think this is a great bit of kit?
Gosh, I don't know. I think it would probably...
Do you have your mother's chopping board?
Well, I mean, I have wooden spoons. I think it might just be wooden spoons. I mean, it's not just one wooden spoon. We have a collection of them because we collected wooden spoons in Africa. I mean, we've collected hand whittled ones in Spain. I mean, wooden spoons for soup, for everything. And then we have some wooden ones we use as salad servers.
Yeah.
I think wooden spoons, but handmade ones that have been sort of crafted, are the things I absolutely love using.
Yeah, they're really nice. You might be able to see a big pot behind me. Got loads of different wooden spoons. So I'm with you on that one. I'm away on holiday.
Shaped to get at the spoon bit, and then very slender handles. I mean, you can go on and on about them, but I love them. Yeah.
Yeah. Monica, it's been absolutely brilliant talking to you. So thank you very much. And everyone, go to Brindisa's website and you can order all your Spanish fare if you can't get away on holiday this year. And you can have a little bit of Spain in your garden. So thank you very much, Monica. That's been brilliant.
Lovely to see you again.
Yeah, lovely to see you. Take care. Bye.